What is magnetism? This is a question from Quora.com. This is a pretty simple question. Magnetism is the thing that attracts iron from a magnet. Let's say this is a magnet and this is iron, and then they attract. That's what magnetism is in its most basic form. But what is light? It's like asking, what is light? Light is what allows us to see. You understand? It allows us to see. That's what light is. It's radiation. It radiates. All photons are just radiation. It's not just gamma rays that are radiation. Gamma rays just happen to be detrimental to human life, but all light is radiation, just like all magnetism would be a form of radiation. That's how, because there's something in between here, and it attracts and it's radiating from this magnet. Magnetism is it's radiation. So, but why do we have magnetism? Would be a better question to ask than what is magnetism. Why do we have magnetism? Why is there magnetism around? Why, all moving charged particles emit magnetism? Why is that? And to understand this, we have to ask ourselves, why do we have photons? Photons are energy regulators. They regulate energy, and they're a byproduct of the regulation of energy. They are released to keep energy balanced in an atomic system. So, and sometimes in like decay of stuff, you get photons coming out because they're part of the balance of that system. They add energy, like when things change from something to something, often they release a photon. That photon being released was part of the energy balance of that thing. And when that photon is released, that thing changes to something else. So that's what a photon does. And it's an energy regulator, just like magnetism. So in the same, to understand why photons are an energy regulator, you have to understand the black body experiment. The more heat you put in, the more energetic the photons that are released by the electrons in the atom, that are part of the atom. The more energetic the photons, as the more heat you add, the energy regulators, so that the system can sustain its integrity. So understanding that, we can then ask, why do we have magnetism, instead of just asking what is magnetism, because that's a purely basic question. Why do we have magnetism? Magnetism is also an energy regulator. It regulates the charge. You understand? Because the charge has to be sustained somehow. A charge is a particular quality of particular particles. Not all particles have a charge. So those particles that have a charge are getting that energy for a charge from somewhere. And they have to release the excess of that energy. And that excess that is being released to maintain integrity. Because an electron can only have so much energy. Otherwise, if it keeps getting more and more energy, it becomes something else, you understand? It will no longer be an electron. So to maintain its integrity, it releases magnetism or any charged particles, like protons. Those three quarks working together, you get a positive charge, and they have to be magnetic. They have to release the energy. You understand? Magnetism is the release of the energy. It's a byproduct of the charge. It's a waste product of the charge. So essentially, that's all it is. And magnetism has many different frequencies, just like photons have many different frequencies. And you can tell some magnetism dies over here, some dies over here, some dies over here, some dies over here, and some might die in unmeasurable amounts. on the Planck scale, or just slightly higher than the Planck scale, a kilometer away, depending on look at the Earth. The Earth's magnetic field stretches out for maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 kilometers, while this magnetic field only stretches out maybe 50 centimeters at best. So there's different qualities of the magnetic field. It's just like photons, because of how much energy is being emitted. It gives different qualities to magnetic fields. So that's what magnetism is. What is magnetism? It's better you ask, why do we have magnetism? And we have magnetism to regulate the energy that comes from the charge, or the thing will lose its integrity and it will become something else.